What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg, and we just wrapped up NBA All-Star Weekend with, dare I say, a fairly entertaining couple of games for the All-Star game itself. It was this year 3 teams in a round-robin tournament. They were doing a USA versus World, but there were 2 USA teams and 1 World team. The format was a little confusing at first, especially because 2 of the teams finished 1-1. So we didn't really know who was going to make the championship, but ultimately it turned out to be pretty entertaining for our first 3 games. The championship game itself was not that close, but the first 3 finished with a score difference of 2-2 and 3. So those games came down to the wire, including that first one going into overtime. Off the rip, Victor Wembanyama set the tone. The very first play of the game, he got the ball, went in the post, and scored. And he said that's what he was going to do. He was going to go out there and try to be competitive, and he played well, and he played hard. So All-Star Weekend is something that I've always been a huge fan of growing up. We made it a big event. Saturday night, obviously, dunk contest, three-point contest, skills challenge was super exciting. And then the game itself, you get to see all of your favorite players on the court at the same time. But in the last few years, it's become something that I don't get that excited for. In full disclosure, I was not really planning on reacting to the weekend itself, as you know, I didn't even really know what I can add. A lot of people have been hating on the game, and to be quite frank, a lot of it's deserved. It's not been that entertaining. But this year, they kind of brought something a little bit new that may work going forward. They may go back to that East-West, teams, but you could still do that and keep this kind of round-robin tournament. Ultimately, what we really like in sports is moments and small sample sizes. What I mean by that, even if you're not a huge baseball fan, if a game goes to extra innings, you can find yourself being very entertained where it feels like every out and every pitch really matters. In football, it's such a small sample size sport. You only have 17 games that it feels like every game has so much significance. And sometimes in the NBA, we miss out on that, especially in an all-star game. You're playing for 48 minutes, and if these guys aren't playing hard the whole time, and then you get to the end of the game and it's not that close, then you really never get to experience moments of competitive basketball. And with this one-quarter system that they did this year, we were able to see moments where the game was tight and guys were playing hard, because ultimately they are top-end athletes and top-end competitors. So if you have them in tight situations where it feels like there's some tension, there's some guys that are playing with real tenacity, you will see an increase in competition. And I think that's what we saw. And Anthony Edwards in previous years has not played hard in the All-Star game, but this year he brought it, won the MVP of the game. I keep saying game, obviously games is what I'm referring to. But all in all, I think that they could have something with this format that could be entertaining for years to come. But we saw a couple years ago when the NBA did that Elam ending style. Basically, you're playing to a score. It's how most of us play basketball when we're, playing in our parks, neighborhoods, whatever. You're playing 2-21. You're playing to a certain score. And that can oftentimes create a lot of intensity once you get down the stretch, because even if you're down 19-0, you have a chance to come back, where, late in a normal all-star game where it's just a time finish, it can really feel like a game is out of hand one way or the other. But when it's close down the stretch and it's like 19-19, you see these guys play with a lot of intensity and start to D up. And that's, again, what we kind of saw out of these 12-minute quarters, and why I think it could be something that worked for something that works going forward for a little bit of an entertainment. We're not asking these guys to play with the intensity they play in the NBA Finals, but can you just make it fun? Now, obviously, for Team World, we saw Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, Giannis, and Shea not play in their second game. Jokic and Luka have never really particularly cared about the All-Star games, and that's okay if they're going to go out there and not play. You can have some of the young guys, Wemby, obviously. Jamal Murray was playing hard. you have some of those young players from the world that are still going to go out there and compete and put on a little bit of a show for the fans. All in all, this weekend was not overly entertaining. Saturday night, again, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know that the dunk contest or the three-point contest had started. They did it mid-afternoon, and I don't really understand why the NBA switched that. They said it had something to do with the Olympics, but the Olympics are being rerun on NBC, so I don't really comprehend. That didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. But instead of NBA All-Star Saturday night, it was Saturday afternoon. And the three-point contest, Damian Lillard won for the third time. That was a pretty good competition. Devin Booker competed with Dame. And you know, obviously Dame, we haven't got to watch play all year with that Achilles injury, but he performed at a high level. The dunk contest, at the other hand, was one of the least entertaining dunk contests we've ever seen. Jackson Hayes might have put on one of the worst dunks in contest history, where he started on a fast break and jumped from like 4 feet inside the free throw line and just threw down a normal slam. It was really quite shocking to see what the dunk contest has become, because it used to be one of my favorite events. Part of the problem that I think we've run into is there's only so much that the human body is capable of doing in terms of hanging in the air and spinning and different kinds of dunks, that yes, the creativity might have been lacking a little bit this year, but I think we're at a point where there's not a whole lot of other things that we are capable of doing. And I'll be interested to see if at some point this dunk contest goes away, or you move it to where it's like a professional dunker competition rather than NBA players. You have like competitions throughout the United States where the best dunkers are competing to make it to that all-star stage. You could create some pretty cool competition in that way. Obviously, we know Mac McClung put on a show the last few years. He's obviously a G League kind of level player, not really an NBA level player, but he's one of those guys that's so impressive dunking the basketball. And there's plenty of those guys that aren't really elite at basketball itself, but really good at dunking. So if you want to create some sort of, entertainment value, there are definitely professional dunkers that can do stuff that we've never seen NBA players do. If you aren't someone that wants to watch that format, then I think it's about time to get rid of the dunk contest completely. And, before tonight's games, I would have said, let's just get rid of this entire weekend completely. The NFL has kind of went to, all sorts of these little stupid challenges that aren't fun to watch. And the game itself is flag football. It's just kind of a different thing. I'm also not a big fan of what the NFL's done. But in the modern NBA, what we do not want, and this is my bigger conversation, Adam Silver is putting so much focus on AI coming into the NBA, on getting content creators out on the court, whether Drewski's out there. Last year, Mr. Beast was all over the court. What I don't think that they understand at the top level of NBA commissioners or the guys who make decisions, what we want is competitive, entertaining basketball on the court. I do not care to watch creators interact and do stupid little games or stupid little competitions. I don't want to see Mr. Beast when I tune in to watch the NBA All-Star Weekend. I don't know if people disagree with me, but based on the other people that I've talked to, we all feel the same way. When Kawhi Leonard had 31 points out of their 47 and was playing an incredible game in one of these games tonight, that was what I wanted to see. And that's what I wanted to see for a long time. And it's what Adam Silver, I don't think, always understands what the common NBA fan really cares about. He talked about how AI is going to allow you to have so much personalization in how you consume the game of basketball. What makes sports great is this common experience that we all watch the game and we're able to see the same thing and we evaluate it in different ways, but we all experience the games in the same way. Sports used to be huge events when they come together, and It's why baseball has done things like playing on the Field of Dreams and different things like that. And then in the NFL, all those games feel like big events. In the NBA, it sometimes feels like it's lacking. You used to, and I have a good friend that I was talking to about this, but he used to tune in to see Michael Jordan play each time just to see the shoes that he was wearing. It was like an event. You'd get together just to watch these games. And that's not what we see out of a lot of modern basketball. And that's the conversation that the NBA needs to have. How can we make these games feel like they have increased importance? Obviously, we hear a lot of talk about shortening the season. Do I think that shortening the season from 82 games to 70 makes the game considerably more entertaining for the fan? I have my reservations about that. You'd see a little less load management potentially. But on the other hand, load management hasn't been too bad in the NBA here in a few years, especially since we created that 65-game threshold. Obviously, Jokic missed part of the season with an injury. Guy like LeBron missed the beginning of the season. There are guys that have, Shea's hurt right now. Guys have missed games due to injury, but that's not really load management. That's a different conversation than years ago when guys were just sitting out for no apparent reason. The NBA has problems, and it needs someone who can step in and actually figure out how to solve those problems. And it's not through AI, and it's not through content creators. It's through creating a quality product on the court and watching these guys play basketball and do things that we've never seen. The NBA has elite players. It has elite styles of play. You have so many players that are capable of doing of playing in so many different ways. Jokic and the Nuggets play so much out of the post, and his ability to pass, his ability to, run like a pick and roll as a center is so entertaining, but it's so different than Shea in his mid-range game. And the Celtics are a three-point shooting team. And the Pistons, they have physicality and toughness and guys who may want to fight you. The NBA has a lot of different styles of basketball. They have to market it. The problem is you've had guys on TV for years that are constantly tearing down the game of basketball instead of building it up and hyping up the different styles of play. And now on Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it, you get on there and all the conversation surrounding the NBA is so negative. But it's because you've had guys like Shaq and Charles Barkley on TV. Skip Bayless, don't even get me started on that guy. But Shaq will get on there and he just rips big men for no reason at all, or rips the modern NBA, or Charles Barkley made fun of people for watching the Hornets-Wizards game, saying what, they had no life or something like that. That's not the way that you build up this sport. You have to market these young guys like Anthony Edwards, guys like Cade Cunningham and the Pistons are the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I don't know that I've heard them mentioned on any national media show the entire season. Maybe they have, maybe I missed it. I will admit I don't catch every segment, but you have great young players and great young talent, and this league has the ability to entertain us at a high level. I'll probably do a video regarding this whole tanking conversation, but this is another area where Adam Silver has it so wrong. The whole point of the draft is for the worst teams in the NBA to be able to build up their rosters again. If the Utah Jazz would have won get rid of the lottery completely, in my opinion. Because if you have the worst record, you should get the opportunity to draft Cooper Flagg or Victor Wembanyama or Anthony Edwards or Kyrie Irving or LeBron James or all these guys that have been #1 picks that have turned a franchise around. If the Utah Jazz would have drafted Victor Wembanyama 3-4 years ago, do you think they'd be tanking? No, they wouldn't. The Spurs now have the opportunity to be competitive for years to come. So the Jazz had to trade Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert for all these assets. But with this lottery system, it can turn out they can end up with not even a great pick. And it's the difference between what the NFL and the NBA has figured out. At an NFL level, as a Cleveland Browns fan, now I'm ashamed to admit that I'm a Browns fan, but I am. When the Browns have the first pick in the draft, and in my mind, I'm like, if they could just get the quarterback right, we have the opportunity to be competitive. Now, we never have. That's because we're terrible and a terrible organization and very poorly ran. But if you draft a guy like Peyton Manning, you get the chance to be competitive for a very long time. And that's where I think the NBA is messed up, because last year The Mavericks had the 10th worst record in the NBA, and they get up and they get Cooper Flag. Well, if the Wizards or the Jazz or the Kings or one of these teams that haven't been good in a long time would have had the opportunity to draft a player like that, then they are now giving their fans and franchises entertaining basketball for the next 10 to 15 years. So I heard Adam Silver suggest potentially getting rid of draft picks for some of these teams that he deems to be tanking, and that is so ridiculous to me. He fined the Indiana Pacers $100,000. They were in the finals last year. Their best player tore his Achilles. So yeah, if they have a bad season, that's what their fans would prefer. You go get a good player in the draft, you bring back Halliburton next year, Siakam, and Zubac, and this young rookie, and the Pacers are going to be a really competitive basketball team. Adam Silver, you have to, I'm begging you to understand your problem in the sport is not that you need to take the opportunity to be good away from these bad teams. This lottery system that they've done and spreading it out only incentivizes the 15th worst team in the NBA to try to tank some games too. Because at some level, there's always going to be teams that are going to tank a little bit to increase their chances. Because last year, the Mavericks were the 10th worst team. If you are right now the 13th worst team in the NBA, and you try to lose some games at the end of the season to increase your chances because you have a chance at the number 1 overall pick, why would you not do that? Why would you try to barely miss the play-in rather than increase your chances at the number 1 pick? So tanking is always going to happen at some level if you have a lottery system. So instead, wipe that away, give the worst team the first pick, allow that team to rebuild and be good. Now, if a team tanks and gets the first pick 5 years in a row, all right, let's figure that out because that's not going to work. But when does that happen? When the Cavs got LeBron, they were good. When the Spurs got Tim Duncan, they were good. When the Wolves have had Anthony Edwards for years, the Spurs are second in the Western Conference right now. Please, Adam Silver, I am begging you to understand what the fans want. It's not getting rid of the draft. We love the draft. Fans, as an NFL fan, like I said, I've always looked forward to draft night. The NBA, the same thing. You get to see where these guys get to go and live out their dreams. So don't get rid of the draft and make it to where players find their way to make it to Los Angeles or New York or these big markets and push the small market teams down even further. Get rid of the lottery, fix your sport, and create more moments and big events that make us want to watch and that make us want to get together with our family and our friends for these big events. The last year, the NBA Finals on ESPN hardly even felt like they were the NBA Finals. You would hardly even know it if you just didn't know that it was the finals. If you tuned on and you're like, oh, there's a basketball game, it did not feel grand and it did not feel like this big event the way that the Super Bowl does, the way that the World Series did, a way that a lot of other sports have figured it out. So NBA, I'm begging you to make the adjustments to fix the sport. You did something okay Sunday night with this All-Star game, but let's build on this momentum. Let's fix the narrative around the league, and let's fix and save the NBA. That's all I got for you tonight. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.